All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the first of a kind of series, I guess. It's a series where it's going to be random, it's going to be sparse. It's the build and chat series. It's going to be a series where whenever I get something that I want to talk about for whatever reason, it's like something specific I want to bring up, I want to share my thoughts on it and whatnot. I'm going to pop in a game. In this case, it's Fallout 4 because it has to do with the topic. But it's not always going to be Fallout 4. It'll be probably a lot of Minecraft if I do, like, depending on how many series I do. Just because, like, it'll all depend on what exactly it is I want to talk about. So, like, in this case, it's Fallout 4 strictly because what I want to talk about is Fallout 4 and more specifically Bethesda related. So I've been watching a lot of videos, and if you watched my Dead Island Let's Play that came out last week, we touched on it a little bit, which is with the Elder Scrolls 6 coming out. You know, like, I've been watching a lot of videos about, like, people posting videos about, like, what we want in Elder Scrolls 6 and that, which is great. I mean, it's good that people are doing it. It's good that people are sharing their thoughts. I, for one, think it's a little late. Because, like, odds are, like, I think that they've already announced that it's going to be in Hammerfall, I think. I'm not 100% on that. Do I want that? Maybe. And if they haven't, like, full on announced it, oops, I guess. Oh, I don't think it really matters if, like, one random person decides that they're going to say that. I mean, if it's not right, it's not right. I'm also not going to say at all what I'm building. I'm sure you guys will figure it out eventually. But the reason I'm doing this series is because I feel like it'll be a good way to share thoughts without me having to worry about the game that I'm playing, right? Like, if you watch the Dead Island, you would notice that we did not talk about, like, the game we were playing at all. Like, not even, like, a little bit. Like, we barely like touched on the fact that we were even playing a game. It was basically a podcast, which is great. Oh, that's what I needed. Which is perfect because, like, you know, that's kind of what I like. It, like, I would like that to happen more in my videos, where it's like just like a lot more relaxed, and like, while I would rather talk about the game. Anyway, we're getting off track. This is the first one, though, so, you know, sorry, I gotta, you know, explain it a little bit so that, like, when ones in the future show up, it won't be as, like, the intros won't be as long to other ones. So anyway, talking about, and the reason we're playing Fallout, and I'm building in Sanctuary here, is because we touched on it in the Dead Island Let's Play, which is whether or not they will have settlements in the Elder Scrolls 6. Now, a lot of I was going to say divided opinions. I've really only heard a few people actually talk about this specific thing. And you know, they didn't want it, or more specifically, they didn't want it to be like it is in Fallout 4. And I agree. So their reasoning behind it, and if you want to know where, like, who I'm talking about, it's the YouTube channel Fudge Muppet. They do a lot of videos on Skyrim and Fallout and that, and I've been listening to them while I work in the mornings because I have a couple hours every morning that I can listen to my phone or YouTube or whatever before, like, actual customers get there. So I generally just spend that time listening to whatever YouTube videos I decide to, and lately I have been listening to their series about things they want in Fallout, or not in Fallout, in Elder Scrolls 6. Now, the main point that they made about it was, if you look at the map, oh, I gotta exit this. If you look at the map, like, all this area, right? Like, there's a big area. As you can see, this is a fairly fresh save. I've done almost nothing. I've spent all my time in fucking Sanctuary building stuff, because that's how I play this game. I'm one of the people who really enjoyed the settlement building features and whatnot, but I will be the first to admit that they could have done it a little better. And we'll go more into that in a minute. But as for whether or not they will have the settlement building at all, generally, if you look at the Elder Scrolls games, and they do bring this up in one of their other videos, God damn it, it's always just that a good way to judge different, like the next Elder Scrolls or the next Fallout is to look at the one that came before it. Which is fair. It's a decent assumption that like the one that came before it is going to influence the one, right? So like Skyrim is going to influence Fallout 4 slightly. Like, you know, like they took out the regular Fallout perk system or the Fallout abilities and whatnot, and they added a more Skyrim-esque perk system. I say Skyrim-esque because the games are different enough that they couldn't just like straight up do the Skyrim perk system, but you know, Skyrim-esque, right? And you know, obviously Fallout 3 and New Vegas, well, not New Vegas, obviously, because that was made by Obsidian, not Bethesda, but whatever. Stuff like that, right? It's all going to influence each other because it's the same company making it. So whether or not it will have it, I imagine that yes, it will have some form of settlement. But at the same time, if you remember, Skyrim had Hearthfire, which was a very low-grade settlement building thing, but it was there. And it was good. I liked it. Once again, though, I'm one of those weird people who can go into a game and like I would spend... Like, I spent so much time, like, I had so many saves in Skyrim for the Hearthfire DLC where I had, like, a save that was purely there. Like, I would be saving constantly as I built stuff because of, like, once again, the Hearthfire DLC, it wasn't implemented the best of ways because, like, you couldn't see what it was you were building exactly. So, like, I'd want to build... So, you know, I'd go into the menu and be like, all right, let's, you know, like this thing. Well, I don't know what this thing is going to look like. Like, well, let's go, the enchanting table, let's say, right? Like, let's say I was in Lakeview Manor and I decided, well, you know what? Maybe I don't want an enchanting table here. By the way, I never actually built, or I never kept an enchanting table there. But it's like, I don't really want an enchanting table here because this is going to be more of a... You know, like this is where I'm going to move my family to, right? Like this is going to be a family home. I don't really need my enchanting stuff here, but I'll check it out. I'll see what it looks like to see if maybe it'll work. You know, like maybe it'll be very unobtrusive. That's too tall. Maybe it'll be uninvasive, like it'll be small, it'll be out of the way or something, right? Like, and then I would try it. So, you know, I'd make a save. I'd build the enchanting table, then I'd go look, and then if I liked it, I'd keep it, and if I didn't like it, I could reload my save and go and get rid of it. So they don't have anything like that. Well, I mean, you could do the same thing here, but at the same time, like, as you can see, you know, you can place it, you can see what you're building and where, which is a better way to do it. Like, it's always good that you can see where it is, and you have a lot more freedom to place it. Now, unfortunately, the problem with that is, as you may notice every now and then as I'm building, if you're watching this and not just listening to it, is that there are a lot of situations where you end up with something that doesn't quite look right. You know, like for whatever reason, it just doesn't really work with it because it doesn't line it up. Like the snap points aren't quite right. Something, right? Like you're always going to run into that. So it is better in that regard, but at the same, so I mean, like that's your two sides of that, right? Where you have the one side where it's like, man, this works really well because you can, because like you can see where it's going, right? Like you can see exactly where it's being placed. You don't have to worry about it being, you know, like really in the way or something. Like it'll go more or less where you want it to go. And then you have Skyrim's where it fits perfectly. It looks perfect. The only issue is that you can't see it before you place it. So if you're not like me and made a save before you built something specifically so that you could load it if you didn't like what you built, you would then be stuck with that thing, right? So like in that regard, it's good. But, and now here's the main point of both this video and the Fudge Muppet video, is they went too far. They built, or they put too many settlements in here. So like if you it's like, once again, if I had a full map, but I don't have any of my older saves, I don't know where they went to, but I don't have them. So if you go look at like a full map of Skyrim and look at the amount of settlements that there are, like settlements that you can build in that, and we'll go to a couple of them in a bit, it's too much, right? Like there's too many, it's too much. And in an Elder Scrolls game, it would really be too much, right? Because like every settlement you go to in Fallout 4 has some kind of a story. It generally has some kind of a like, how would you? Fuck, I don't know how. It's some kind of a story anyway, right? Like, for better or for worse, it has some sort of a story tied to it that is generally involved in like a short quest for you, and then you get control of that settlement. You can now take it apart, build it up, do whatever, trap people inside rooms that they can't escape from, whatever you feel like doing, right? And there's nothing that can stop you because they have given you full control over their settlement. Which in a few of the settlements, like the ones that you have to clear out the raiders, for example, like those settlements there, those are the perfect kinds of settlements for this. Purely because obviously you go there, you clear out the raiders, you now have control of that settlement. Nobody would complain, right? Like in the Nuka World DLC, they did add raider clans, but I don't think before that any there was like no like widespread raider clans. Like you'd have like the Forged, but they were in this one building, right? Like you'd have this other raider clan, but they were in this one building and stuff like that, right? Which was good. But once again, when you get to the different settlements, or when you get to other settlements such as like farms and that, it doesn't really make sense that they would give you as much control as they do. Like, yes, you can do all this cool stuff. Like, obviously, like, I mean, there's no real reason that's in the game that they wouldn't be able to do a lot of the stuff you do as well. But, I mean, that's just the game, right? Like, that, you can't help that. Like, that's just the way these games work. Like, you're the main character. Obviously, you can do way more than most of these other people, right? Otherwise, there would be no point to you. And now the thing that I think, because like this is a two-part video, it's just like why this settlement system is not quite right, and my version of it, which I think would have been a little better, but obviously it's up for discussion. So feel free to post in the comments like whether or not you agree with what I say, or whether or not like you agree with part of it, none of it. I mean, call me an asshole, who cares? Don't call me an asshole, delete that comment. But I mean, like, if you're going to disagree with me, that's fine. Just don't be rude about it. But the main thing that, because like I said, I just started this game. I don't know if it'll actually tell me, 18 hours, not almost 19 hours. And I barely left Sanctuary. Like my map is pathetic. Like, look at that. That's how far I've went outside of Sanctuary in 19 hours of this game. Because all I've been doing is spending my time building up Sanctuary, making it look good. I've built like a mayor's house. I built 2 bunkhouses. I fucking built a greenhouse. Got my water pumps and like everything, right? I even went around and put for rent signs on buildings that I haven't put anything in yet. And like look, I have a fucking salon. Like, this is like, I can spend all fucking day doing shit like this in a game, but it's not for everyone. And one of the points they made is even though every settlement technically has a story, even got a generator room, they're very simple stories, right? Like, for example, the first settlement that you get sent to every time, or if it's not, it's really weird that I keep getting it every time I play the game, is 10 Pines Bluff. And it's a fucking shithole. Like, there's nothing there. There's a shack that they have set up. And that's pretty much it, is they set up a shack in the middle of nowhere. They have like 3 fucking potato plants growing. Like, I haven't even bothered to go there yet because it's such a shithole and I just don't want to deal with it, right? And like, and it's like, it's such a pain in the ass when you have to deal with those places, right? Like, because like, you don't want to deal with those places. Not a chance do you want to deal with those places. Because there's nothing that, like, there's very little you can do. And 10 Pines is even a worse example, or is like one of the worst examples, purely because the way that the land is laid out. Like, if you look at Sanctuary, since we're here, it's laid out because they built the city so that it made sense, right? It made sense. Everything worked in it. And so like, when you come back after you wake up and you start building here, there's nothing off about it, right? Like, the ground isn't necessarily like 100% level, but it's also not all wonky. You go to 10 Pines Bluff, that ground is all over the place. Like, it has like this weird hill right in it. Like, it makes no sense that they would decide to use that as a settlement. And there is no story there. You go there, and I think the quest is to go and kill some raiders. I'm not even sure. It's been a while since I've played Fallout. I started playing it again while listening to the Fudge Muppet videos and that. Just because, like, it got me wanting to play it a bit more. But then, like, you get the good settlements, right? Like, Sanctuary here is a great settlement. You get, I can't remember what it's called. It's like something Plains or something. It has like the hippie Mr. Handy there. I don't remember what it's called, but like, you get that place. You get the castle. You get the island. I don't remember what it's called, but you get like the island place that's like surrounded by like the radioactive shit, where like you basically need ghouls to live there. You get like Jamaica Plains is one where it's odd, I'll say. Like, I do get a pretty solid settlement built there usually, but there's like that one like really weird part where it like goes up and there's stairs and there's like the little park that's there. But like, the main thing about those places is that they work really well for there, I'll say. Because they're there, and because of the fact that like those places are locations that they built up, and then they just let you, then they decided that, you know what, the player should be able to take control of this part, right? And that's the way that they did those ones, which is a good way to do it. But at the same time, what they did is they left a bunch of shit holes, like 10 Pines Bluff, where they could have put something cool in that section of the map, and they just didn't. They decided, you know what, let's just leave this section blank. And this was a big point in the Fudge Muppet video, where, and which is one of the reasons why they didn't want to do it, is they didn't want a developer looking at a plot of land and being like, I could do this cool thing here, or I could leave it blank and then just let the player do something cool there. Like, they didn't want that. And I agree. That's not ideal, to say the least. And like I said, they did it all right with this game. But at the same time, there is a lot of sections where, like, they just kind of left it blank. They put it basic. Like, they had the ground there, and then they just, like, it was garbage, right? Come on. which obviously isn't ideal, it isn't good, but what can you do? We're not the developers, right? So like there's no way that they could change this. And like I said, even if Bethesda did decide to look at videos like this one and that, odds are, since I'm pretty sure they've announced that it's going to be in Hammerfell, or they released a trailer or something that, I don't know if there's gameplay of it or it's just like a teaser trailer. But either way, people have judged from the trailer that it's in Hammerfell. So, I mean, it has to have some substance to it. And, which means that they've probably got a decent chunk of the game built already. So, videos like this probably isn't going to influence it too much. But my idea for it would be, because like, and here's the other thing, right? Which is why I was going to put off making this video until because I was going to go through the Nuka World DLC. Because with the Nuka World DLC, they added raiders, or raider settlements that you control, that you make and can control. And then they have different, like, well, and that's right. They have different something that I don't know because I haven't played it, right? Where like the raiders get like other settlements to give them supplies or something. Like your raiders don't like to work, so if you make them work, they'll be annoyed with you. But you can get other settlements, like you can take over other settlements or use other settlements as that'll pay tribute to your raiders or something, right? So I don't know exactly how that works. Maybe you can tell me in the comments if this is true, that it very well could be that that like my plans are just like what they did there. Which, to be fair, if that's true, that's awesome, because that would mean that they already doing what I would rather them do. But anyway, my version of it, it will, would be that you don't, like, you still have your good settlements, right? Like Sanctuary here is a good settlement. You would have your, like, you would have your Sanctuary, you would have your Jamaica Plains, like you would have all the ones that are like that, right? Like the good sized settlements that can have a history behind them and everything and shit like that, right? Like those settlements you would have in the game still, like those wouldn't change. But the thing that would change would be the little shit settlements, and not even like the shit settlements, like the farm settlements and that, like all of those kinds of settlements, right? All of those would change, where instead of having them be settlements that you build like this, instead they would be settlements that would be like, it would basically be like a passive bonus, if that makes sense, to your current settlements. So like, for example, the way I usually set up my stuff, I'm going to bring up the map again, is like I have Sanctuary here, right? It's connected to Red Rocket just because why not? But like I'll connect it to the Abernathy farm, and by connected I mean I'll have a provisional there with supply line, which means you share supplies. And I'll connect it to 10 Pines Bluff, right? Because they're the two closest settlements. Like Sanctuary is my big settlement, so I'll connect it to all like the little shit settlements around it, right? And then once I go down, I think it's like around here is like the other one. The way that one's set up, it works really well that I usually outfit it so it's like a supply depot, right? So like Sanctuary will be connected to like the little settlements around it, which if you don't know, it takes one settler. You get 10 settlers plus your charisma that can be in one location, right? So let's say 20, right? So I would have, and so each settler, so like to connect Sanctuary to 10 Pines, Red Rocket, and Abernathy Farm would take 3 settlers, right? So what I would do is I would do that, and then in Sunny Plains or whatever it's called, I don't think it's Sunny Plains because I think I'm thinking of Jamaica Plains, I would have all 20 of my settlers as provisioners connecting all of my major settlements. So like each major settlement, like Sanctuary, Jamaica Plains would be, all that would be connected to whatever it is called here, with a provisioner from Sunny whatever, right? Like from my warehouse type settlement. And from, so like there wouldn't be a settler from Sanctuary, that would be the provisioner. It would be one from Sunny whatever, that would be the provisioner. But from Sanctuary would be the provisioners for Abernathy Farm, Red Rocket, and 10 Pines Bluff. So like the way that I would have rather it got done would have been if they just basically like gave passive, like instead of the provisioners and that to share your resources between your settlements, I think it would have been better if just they were automatically shared. And with that, like the little settlements that you could pick up along the way, instead of just becoming completely under your control, would instead just provide like a passive bonus to whatever. So like Abernathy Farm is obviously a farm, so it would provide a boost to your farm, or to your food, I guess, not your farm, and possibly give you foodstuffs and that at just like intervals, right? Like not like just at some kind of interval, it would give you that. So like with that, I think it would be a lot better and it would be a lot easier, because then what they could have done is they could flesh out those kinds of settlements a little bit more and have them be like a lot more in-depth, a lot more interactable, a few more quests. And like with that and those settlements, they could also have it where when you take control of one of these settlements, right, you'll have your quest to take control of them, and then you would get like you see like the happiness bar, right? Like the upper right corner is the happiness bar. I currently have 80 happiness and it's rising. And they would have something like that, but instead of a happiness bar, it'd be more of like a reputation bar. I guess it could be a happiness bar, but it would be like what they think of you, right? And with that, they could have it where you would get perks or bonuses as that went up, right? So like as they became more, or as you became more influential with them, as you became more connected to them, as you showed them more that you cared about them, basically, it would obviously work out a lot. So like they would work out so that you would get more stuff. Like you would get like you would get more of boost from them. You would get more of more supplies from them regularly. You would like stuff like that, right? Which would have been really cool, and they could have very easily done it. And the way you would get that is they could have it where it's just over time, like the longer they're connected to you, the more it is. Or they could even have it where it's like it raises the more you're connected, and then at a certain point, or they could make it where the only way to do it is like you did other quests for them, right? So like, for example, let's use the Abernathy Farm for as an example, right? When you first go there, you talk to them and they're like, hey, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's you have to go and fight raiders and get the necklace, like their daughter's necklace back or something, I think it is. And I think that post that I put there is really fucking with this thing. Nah, it can't be it. It must be things or something. And once you go and do that, then you get full control over it. Like, that's it. You go, you kill a couple raiders, and they give you full control over your farm. You can fuck it up however you want, and they won't say anything about it. And it doesn't make much sense, right? Because it's like, they put all the time and effort into this farm. Like, you just showed up, and like I said, you kill a couple of raiders. Like, that's one of the few locations I've actually cleared out already just because I felt like it, and it was close by, and I needed resources. So like you do that, you get full control over it, but instead of that, you get slight control over it. Well, I guess you would get no control over it, really. And instead of getting control over their settlement, you become allies with that settlement. And they start providing you with food and, you know, depending on what kind of settlement it is, right? Like certain settlements could give you food, other settlements might give you like specific kinds of junk, stuff like that, right? And oh god. And with that, you know, it would increase like the variety of the settlements, because as it stands, the majority of the settlements are either nothing or farms. Like that's what you got. Like you don't have like anything else. And then there would be like upgrades that you could get for them, but not in the same sense as like right now I'm building this place, right? That's a completely different thing than an upgrade, because this is me taking full control over it. But what you could do for upgrades is be like you could talk to them and they could be like, hey, we need guards. It's like, we're out here, we're in the middle of nowhere, we're providing you with this stuff. Could you, by chance, provide us with some kind of defense or something, right? Or something for defense, right? And it could be like, if they still had the settler system like they have now, it could be something like, could you provide us with a couple of people for guards, right? And then you could be like, yes, you could assign them people, and then you would lose those 2 settlers. It would increase the defense of that settlement, if defense would be a thing. I don't really know if you would actually have like a defense rating for it or something, but you know, like it would increase your reputation with those people because you have done this thing for them. And then that would provide you with more bonuses and everything, and you would be good to go. And then, you know, from there you could extend it even further, where like, hey, like one that isn't a farm, right? Could be like, hey, we need more food. Could you by chance spare like X amount of your current food? So like, let's say you gain, like right now my food is 12, right? So let's say I'm gaining 12 food an hour. That's not obviously how it works, but let's say let's just say it is, right? With that, you could very easily have it where it's like, hey, we need food, and let's once again use the Abernathy farm. I do believe they have 3 people living there. I do believe it's the parents and that there's 2 parents and a kid. So like there's 3 people there. 1 food feeds 1 settler. Like your food has to equal your people or be more than it. So let's say, hey, we're not a farm. Like, well, I know I'm using the Abernathy farm as an example, but let's say it wasn't a farm, right? But they had 3 people. They could be like, hey, look, we're doing this for you, right? Like whatever this could be, right? Could you provide us with some food and be like, we can get our own, but could you provide us with, let's say, 1 food, right? Like we need 1 food. So like my 12 would drop down to 1, but that would increase my reputation with them. And once again, this would extend into the this could extend into the reputation thing, where it's like, since I'm providing them with food, I can choose whether or not to continue providing them with food, which would continuously give me like more reputation with them per whatever, you know, amount of time it's set to. Or I could cancel it and just be like, you know what, fuck you guys. Or, you know, it's like, for whatever reason, cancel it, and then I would lose that bonus and maybe take a small hit to my reputation with them. I think I might have to stop here in a second. But anyway, and be up with you. But anyway, like they would just be standard things like that, and then like you could do side quests for them. Like they could have it more side quests, and like as you did the side quests, it could increase, or it could change the farm, right? Like let's say you do the one where they ask for help defending it, and you send them a couple of guys. Like you could actually have those couple of guys guarding the place. You could have them go there and maybe set up guard posts or the like, right? Like you could go there and they would have guard posts set up, but it would be pre-scripted, which means that it would look a lot better. Like you wouldn't have to worry about it looking all willy-nilly, because it would be stuff where it would just spawn in once you've done that quest and a certain amount of time has passed, right? So I think something like that might be able to work in an Elder Scrolls game where like you would have one place to build, for example, maybe one per region, like Skyrim had its holds, right? So let's say in each hold you had your one place you could build, like, and whatnot, right? And with that, you could build whatever, like let's say it had something similar to this, but more Elder Scrolls-y, obviously. And with that, you know, you would have your one settlement. You could be whatever size, you know, like I don't know how big they would want to make it, because I mean these settlements are decent size, but like obviously you're not going to be like, I mean you could build like a castle. In fact, they even have the castle that you can take over if you do the Minuteman quest. But like you could have something like that. I'm going to need more steel here in a second. And then like you could have like the other towns that are just like they are, but you could gain a reputation with them and potentially become their allies and get resources from them, supplies from them, and stuff like that. And they could have it so like, you know, if you get to like a certain reputation, it's like, oh, now the towns trust you, and like not you get control over it, but like they will reveal something for you, right? Like I know it's a dumb example to use, but like the only one I could think of is if in Sleeping Dogs, right? Like you have your romances, and once you finish your romance storylines, they reveal collectibles on the map for you, right? So it could be something like that, right? Where they'll mark points of interest, because like we're talking about Elder Scrolls, right? So like they would mark points of interest on the map around their settlement, right? And like the higher your reputation, the more points of interest they will give you. And stuff like that. So that's my thoughts on it. So like I think it would be better if they went for less full-on settlements. And this is both, like, it would have been better in Fallout 4 in my opinion, and it makes it plausible, or at least more plausible, for Elder Scrolls 6, where you have your one big settlement where you build it up, you do your things, whatever. And then any smaller settlements aren't strictly yours to control like this, but instead are just like there to help you. They're like buffs, they're like perks. They're like an extra thing that you don't directly interact with. Because like I said, I've spent 19 hours. I haven't left Sanctuary. I barely left Sanctuary. After I'm actually done building all my stuff here, I'm going to end up probably going to like the Abernathy farm, because I already got the locket turned in, and I'll probably end up spending quite a few hours building there as well, just to make it look like I want it to, right? So it's like I would much rather have it, like, even though I enjoy doing it, like I don't do it because I feel I have to, I do it because I enjoy doing it. And even with that though, I still know it's a chore. I know it's a big chore, and I know a lot of people don't like that. So this way more people would be invested in it, because I know that a lot of people, because I read comments and that online for different stuff, and I know that a lot of people got really overwhelmed, even if that isn't the word they used, with the settlement building in Fallout 4, because it was so prevalent. There was so much of it, and like it just didn't feel worth it to them to go through all that work at every settlement and make it like that, right? Which I completely 100% understand. Like even as someone who enjoys doing it, it's too much. So like that's my thoughts on the matter. I think that that would have been a much better way to do Fallout 4 settlements. I think that it makes the possibility of settlements in Elder Scrolls 6 at least more plausible, if not like completely satisfied with that. I mean, it's still a lot better than if they had just taken this one and put it in. It would still be a lot better than the Hearthfire DLC and shit like that. Although I will say with the Hearthfire DLC, like I said, everything looked right because it was supposed to be there, because a designer made sure that it looked good there. There was no guesswork involved. So even if they just expanded the Hearthfire system to incorporate a larger settlement, and then, like I said, implemented maybe a few other features where you got like a couple more settlements. But obviously the junk system from Fallout 4, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna go and scrap this typewriter to get gears in that obviously wouldn't work very well for Skyrim. Like, that doesn't fit in with Skyrim lore wise or any otherwise really. So it would have to be, once again, like in the Hearthfire DLC, where you could go, you could buy your wood, you could chop your own wood to get it, you could mine your own ore to get it, and I think you actually had to mine your own like clay in that. I don't think that you could get I don't think you could buy that. I think you did have to mine that, but it was like barely anything, right? And the thing is, with the Hearthfire DLC, everything resource wise seemed fair to me, whereas there's a few things in this that, because of the way they have it, doesn't make sense. Like, I know that there's a lot of points, like for example, these chairs, right? They're obviously wooden chairs. They take 1 steel. That steel is for the nails. I know that. As a person, I know it takes nails to put a chair together. But at the same time, it's weird to see it as just steel. It's like, oh, you're building a wooden chair, but it requires steel. It's like, I know why, but it does take a second of thinking. Like, it's not something that just automatically clicks. Like in Skyrim, it's like, oh, I'm building this chest. I need this much lumber and this many nails. It's like, all right. And like, I never questioned it. Like, there was never like a moment where it's like, why is that part of that thing? It's just like, that makes sense because it's the actual thing, right? But yeah, that's my thoughts on the subject. This has been the first build in chat. Once again, I don't know how many of these I'm going to do. Whenever I have like a topic that I really feel like I would like to share my opinions in that on, that I feel at least somewhat strongly about, and I feel like I might have an opinion that's at least somewhat different than other people's, I'll do these videos. But they will by no means become a standard, like weekly or even monthly thing. They will just be sporadic as to whenever I have something that I want to talk about. But thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.